Have you ever observed how some individuals command attention without raising their voices? They don't chase after approval or feel compelled to justify their worth. Then, when they choose to withdraw, the atmosphere transforms completely. It is not merely silence. It is the weight of their presence that lingers even when they are gone. People instinctively lean in, sensing a shift that makes them uncomfortable. They become acutely aware of something precious slipping away, and suddenly they find themselves desperately trying to reclaim it. That is the power no one talks about. The impactful disruption that happens when you stop being constantly available. What would happen if you didn't answer right away? What if you paused instead of reacting? What if your silence became your boundary? Most of us were never taught that stillness holds strength. We were taught to fill every space, respond to every message, smooth over every tension with a smile. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." That includes the irritation others feel when you no longer show up like you used to. You see, your constant presence isn't a gift. It can become a mirror people use to avoid looking at themselves. The moment you step back, the spell breaks. The roles dissolve, and suddenly people are forced to feel their own discomfort. They call it distance. They call it coldness. But really, it is a shift in power. When you stop making yourself available to everyone, you are no longer predictable, and people can't control what they don't understand. This is not about disappearing out of bitterness. It is about becoming selective. It is about reclaiming your energy. Not as a punishment to others, but as a recognition of your own worth. Here is the truth. When you stop being emotionally accessible to the wrong people, the right ones start to notice your value. So ask yourself, who actually deserves your availability? And what happens when your silence says more than your presence ever did? Most people don't need to control you with force. They control you by predicting you. By knowing you will always answer, always soften, always show up. And over time, that becomes their unspoken agreement with you. You will always be available, and they will never need to earn it. They press your buttons not to harm you, but to confirm that they still can. They poke your insecurities not out of malice, but to remind themselves that you are still predictable, still theirs to activate. Jung said that the things that irritate us in others are often doorways to understanding ourselves. But there is another side to that insight. Sometimes the way others react to your boundaries reveals how much control they have quietly had over you all along. When you are always available, emotionally, mentally, physically, you become easy to manage. You respond before thinking. You soften before questioning. You say yes before checking whether you want to. And the price of that reflex is subtle but devastating. You start to disappear. Each forced smile, every unspoken no, every quick reply that comes from guilt instead of choice, it chips away at your center. Until one day, all you feel is tired, not just physically, but spiritually. Tired from being so reachable, so reliable for people who never once asked how much it was costing you. The truth is, most of them don't even notice how much you give, because they have never had to. And that is what changes when you stop being available. There is something most people never tell you. Being emotionally available all the time does not make you kind. It makes you exhausted. You say yes to keep the peace. You respond quickly so no one feels hurt. You explain yourself to avoid conflict. But inside, you are slowly disappearing. Not because you don't care, but because you care more than your soul can afford. And the worst part? People don't reward your constant presence. They start to expect it. They treat your energy like a public resource, available on demand, free of charge, and without gratitude. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said that the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, can become a cage. You become so good at being who others need, you forget who you really are. You say, "I'm fine," when you are breaking. You stay on the phone even when your chest feels heavy. You reply to messages at midnight just to avoid being misunderstood. But here is the truth no one wants to say out loud. What is always available becomes invisible. What is too easy to reach is taken for granted, and what is predictable is no longer respected, only used. This is not bitterness. It is a mirror. Your availability has become a performance, and the audience only claps when you give them what they want. So pause. Look at the places where you keep showing up out of fear. Look at the faces that only smile when you say yes. What are you really losing? Just to be seen as nice? Somewhere along the line, you were taught that love has a price. That price? Your authenticity. So you crafted a version of yourself that would never make others uncomfortable. Polite, available, understanding, always agreeable. And slowly, you started calling that version you. But Jung had a name for it, the persona. A social mask, not a lie, but not the whole truth either. A survival tool that eventually becomes a trap. You keep it on so long that even you start to forget what is underneath. You say, "It is okay," when you are silently screaming. You comfort people who would never sit with you in your grief. You rush to explain yourself, defend yourself, justify your boundaries, as if being honest means being guilty. The mask becomes heavy, not because it is false, but because it is endless. The moment you take it off, when you say no, when you don't respond, when you finally let the silence fall, people flinch. They don't recognize you because they never knew you. They only knew the version that served their comfort. And that is the terrifying part. You have become so used to performing availability that you mistake guilt for love and exhaustion for connection. But the truth is, if your presence depends on a mask, your soul is already gone. This is where individuation begins, when you stop trying to be accepted and start trying to be real. Even if that means being misunderstood, even if it means walking alone for a while. Because the first step to becoming whole is removing what was never really you. Carl Jung didn't see the mind as just thoughts and memories. He saw it as an energy system, a living current flowing through your choices, your reactions, your silence. Every moment you react without thinking, every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, every fight you enter just to feel seen, you are spending energy. Not just time, not just patience. Your psychic energy, your life force. And most people have no idea they are leaking it constantly. You ruminate over what they said. You replay arguments that should have ended days ago. You try to fix what isn't yours to hold, all while your own center begins to fray. Jung warned that what we resist persists. And every time you resist silence, resist walking away, resist letting go, you are tethering yourself to the very thing draining you. This is why so many people feel chronically tired, not from doing too much, but from feeling too much for people and situations that never returns the depth. It is not weakness. It is a misdirected strength. You have been taught to give your energy away, to prove your worth, to calm someone else's chaos, to be the emotional anchor in someone else's storm. But what if the real strength isn't in holding everyone together? What if it is in choosing where your energy goes and where it never goes again? When your energy is scattered, you feel powerless. But when it is protected, you walk into any room, and your presence speaks for itself. That is the beginning of real power. And it always starts with one quiet decision: to stop reacting. and start conserving. Manipulators don't always yell. All they need is your predictability. They know you will defend yourself. They know you will respond. They know you hate being misunderstood. And that is the string they pull. Because once they can trigger your emotions, they don't need to control the outcome. You will control yourself, trying to fix, explain, prove, or please. But something happens the moment you go quiet. When you stop reacting, stop defending, stop explaining. The entire game breaks. The roles they assigned you, the helper, the fixer, the forgiver, they begin to dissolve, and suddenly they are not dealing with the version of you they controlled. They are standing face to face with the version they can't reach. This is not passive aggression, it is clarity. Because not every silence is a retreat. Some silences are walls, not to punish but to protect what is sacred. Your peace, your power, your time. Jung called it withdrawing projection, refusing to be a canvas for someone else's pain. When you stop giving emotional reactions, people are forced to sit with their own behavior. And most don't want to. So they lash out. They accuse you of changing. They say you have become distant, cold, unkind. But what they really mean is you have stopped being convenient. And here is the secret most don't realize. It is not the silence that hurts them. It is the mirror your silence becomes. The world doesn't know what to do with silence. We are trained to fill space, to speak quickly, to respond faster than we feel. To be silent is to be mistaken for cold, distant, weak. But real silence is a kind of sovereignty. It is not the absence of voice. It is the presence of mastery, the refusal to waste words on those who don't listen or to pour emotion into places that never hold it. Carl Jung saw silence not as emptiness, but as a fertile ground, a space where the unconscious could finally speak without interruption. And when you become silent by choice, not out of fear but out of clarity, you begin to hear something deeper. Your own voice. Unfiltered, unrushed, unburdened. This is the moment when you stop performing, when you stop rehearsing answers in your head, when you stop offering explanations to people who were never interested in understanding you to begin with. Your silence becomes a boundary, not a wall, but a filter. It reveals who is willing to meet you with presence and who only came for the performance. And yes, some will misunderstand. They will call you arrogant, distant, selfish. But what they are really saying is, you are no longer who I could control. And that is exactly the point, because silence at its highest form isn't withdrawal. It is return. A return to self, to stillness, to the center of your being, where no noise can touch you. No one warns you how lonely healing can feel. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people fall silent. The moment you stop playing your old role, some disappear. And it hurts, not because you need them, but because you once thought they saw you. But this distance, this sudden stillness, it is not rejection, it is initiation. Jung called this phase sacred isolation. The time when you walk alone, not as punishment, but as a necessary passage into your true self. You aren't losing people, you are shedding patterns, and anyone who only loved the mask will never stay for the soul behind it. You will wonder if you have become too hard, too quiet, too selective. You will grieve the ease of the old life, even if it was slowly draining you. But look closely. The grief you feel is not about losing others, it is about losing the version of you who always made herself small just to be chosen. This is rebirth, not abandonment. When you withdraw from noise, you begin to hear the truth. When you say no to dysfunction, you make space for real connection. And when you finally stop performing, you begin to feel your own presence again. This is not loneliness. It is the early silence of a new life, a life where you are no longer available for half-hearted love, for one-sided loyalty, for emotional crumbs dressed up as closeness. You are not vanishing. You are returning to the person you were always meant to become. At some point, you have to choose, not between right and wrong, not between being liked or feared, but between explaining yourself and protecting your peace. You have spent years trying to be understood, writing long messages, justifying your silence, trying to make others see your heart. But the truth is, those who wanted to understand you already did. And the ones who didn't, they never listened to begin with. So now, you choose peace over performance. Not out of anger, not to prove anything, but because you finally understand that you don't owe anyone access to your energy. You don't need to explain why you are unavailable, why you didn't respond, why you no longer feel guilty for choosing rest over performance. Jung said that individuation, the journey to wholeness, requires separation from the collective. Because clarity does not come from noise, it comes from space, and peace is never loud. You will be misunderstood. Some will say you have changed. Others will accuse you of being selfish. Let them. Because this is not about changing how others see you. It is about changing how you treat yourself. Every time you say, "Not today," every time you pause before reacting, and every time you walk away instead of explaining, you are reclaiming something sacred: your time, your presence, your energy. And no one, no matter how entitled they feel, has a right to those things unless they have earned it. So here is the quiet truth. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving others the power to define you. And in that silence, you finally begin to feel free. One of the clearest signs that you are healing is that people start pulling away. Not everyone will understand, just the ones who were attached to the version of you who never said no, never asked for space, never dared to rise beyond the performance. You meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it. Sometimes the people you lose along your journey to self-discovery were never meant to walk the path with you for long. Embrace the lesson they bring and keep moving forward. The more whole you become, the less available you are for half-hearted connection. You stop tolerating emotional chaos just to keep the peace. You stop shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone, and it unsettles people. They will say you have changed. They will question your silence. They will try to provoke a reaction just to make sure they still have access to the old you. But the truth is, they are not reacting to who you have become. They are grieving the control they lost. Your wholeness is not meant to be convenient. It stands strong without rushing to respond, clarifying every boundary, or apologizing for its unique existence. And embrace that power. So observe closely. Who distances themselves when you become quieter? Who tries to bait you when you stop explaining? Who accuses you of being cold the moment you finally protect your energy? These are not signs that you are being cruel. They are proof that you have begun to respect yourself. Wholeness is not loud. It does not demand attention. It just stops showing up for anything that doesn't feel like the truth. Once the noise fades, a new kind of silence begins. Not the silence of rejection, not the silence of hiding, but the silence of realignment. You start to ask more profound questions, not concerning others, but focusing on yourself. Why did I give so much to people who gave so little? Why did I feel responsible for emotions that were not mine? Why did I keep showing up for places that drained me? Carl Jung said the human psyche is not infinite. Every thought, every reaction, every emotion pulls from a limited source of psychic energy. Now you finally understand. Your energy is sacred. You no longer pour it into conversations that go nowhere. You no longer chase clarity from people committed to confusion. You no longer try to fix what was never yours to carry. This is the emotional reset. You breathe before replying. You let unanswered messages sit without guilt. You choose solitude without labeling it loneliness. And the pieces of yourself that once felt scattered begin to come back home. You are no longer leaking energy to maintain illusions. Your attention becomes intentional. Your presence becomes selective. Your time becomes something you no longer give freely just because someone asked for it. What returns to you is not just energy, it is dignity. When your energy is protected, your soul is protected. And when your soul is protected, you no longer seek approval. You radiate peace. You used to accept the crumbs, a half reply, a conditional love, a moment of attention when you were drowning in silence. But now, you have remembered something deeper. You were never meant to beg for presence. Jung said that to become who we truly are, we must walk away from the collective. Not in bitterness, but in courage. And that is what you have done. You have said no, not to people, but to versions of yourself that were built on survival. You have ceased to explain yourself. You have stopped reacting to others. You have stopped trying to fit into roles you never wanted. And what you have gained is not applause or understanding or even recognition. What you have gained is clarity. Now your silence is not emptiness, it is power. Your unavailability is not rejection, it is refinement. You no longer respond out of fear, you respond from alignment. You no longer seek peace from others, you carry it within. And yes, some will still misunderstand you. They will say you have grown distant. They will say you have changed. And you have. You have changed into someone who no longer trades authenticity for attachment. Someone who knows. The moment you stop being always available, you become truly visible. So let them go. Let the noise fall away. Let the past version of you rest. From this moment forward, you will no longer settle for emotional crumbs. You are done with the chaos of the past. Instead, you will embrace only that which truly honors your soul. In this serene and empowering space, you find your completeness. Thank you for spending this time with us. Your presence here means more than you know. If this reflection touches something within you, consider subscribing to join us on this journey. Your likes and comments not only inspire us, but also help us connect with others who may need to hear this message. We value your voice, so if you would like to share your own experience, know that we read every word. Until we meet again, stay grounded, stay strong, and embrace your wholeness.